Hello, greetings. Welcome to Attaining the Second Cognition. This is Doug Michael. Nice to be spending some time with you again today, ladies and gentlemen. The topic for this segment is words and language. And ladies and gentlemen, language is one of the most difficult things I have encountered on my own spirit path. Words can be useful in communicating with others, but I find that words can be the greatest hindrance to our species. Words can be the thing that brings people together, but more times than not, words are what divides people and tears them apart. You have to ask, is it the words that divide people, or are words the tools and weapons people use to divide ourselves? In her book, The Energy Experience, Mrs. Beall states that one needs to be mindful of our thoughts and our words. But I'd like to take this a little bit further. I'd like you to think about something. What I'd like you to think about is how you use words in your everyday life, and think about how you came to know words. Then, I'd like you to think about a specific word and think about what that specific word means to you. The word I want you to think about is love. Think about what the definition of the word is in your own mind. After you've done that, think about the word and how you use it in everyday life. Then think about the word and how others use it in everyday life. After you have done this, grab a dictionary or go online and search for the definition and see how many variants of the definitions you can find. Do any of the definitions you find match with what the meaning of the word is for you? When we are young, we do not have the means to communicate with our parents because we are babies and we have to learn from them or learn from watching them. As we grow older, we are socialized and we learn more and more. When we go to school, we formally learn the chosen language of our nation. Though we do not learn the entire language, we only learn the words that the educational institution deems necessary to teach us. If we are lucky, sometimes we'll pick up a dictionary and randomly choose words in order to broaden our knowledge base. The words we are not taught in school, we typically pick up from hearing others speak the words, and most of the time, if we cannot garner meaning from the context in which the word has been used, we might ask the person what the word means and learn their perception of that word. Then we choose to use the word in our everyday life, and our mind has set itself on the meaning we learned from another's perspective, and the meaning that we apply to the word might not be, the definition of the word or what the word means to someone else. To me, the definition of the word is not near as important as the thought in the mind of the person speaking the word. As explained in the energy experience, our thoughts have power and our thoughts do create. Words do not create, thought creates. So even though the words we speak may be meaningless, our thoughts of the words and how we perceive the words' meaning are what gives words power over us, if we allow it, and power over others if they allow it. Endall has written in his books about Orwell's Newspeak, and he and I have both written about how we have all been conditioned by society to be politically correct with our words so as not to offend others, but words are just words. Without the thought to create, the words truly do not have any power, yet so many people give words power by their own thoughts and their own intent. People use words as a weapon to hurt other people by taking regular words and give them a derogatory meaning. The derogatory meaning seeps into the psyche of everyone, and then when a person uses the word in a non-derogatory manner, the offended person views the other person as a bad person because they found themselves offended by a word that was not used in an offensive way. When you react with offense to a word, especially when the word is not used in a derogatory manner, you are in essence giving that word power over you. Ladies and gentlemen, in my presentation, Take It or Leave It information, I addressed this. I pointed out how people become immediately offensive to what's considered to be a profane word simply because they're conditioned to be offended by it, not because the word was directed at them in, a way to personally attack them, simply because they've been conditioned to be offended by hearing certain words. When people get the derogatory use of the word stuck in their psyche, they do not let it go, and the word then becomes taboo for everyone else, even those that use the word in its original defined state. We see this often in the U.S. with certain nationalities. If you call someone from Mexico a Mexican or a Jewish person Jewish, people will call you a racist, right? Or perceive that you are a racist, even if you didn't use the word in a derogatory way. I've seen this very frequently. There is a major difference in how words are used and an individual's sensitivity to a word. When you automatically bristle when a word is used and not in a derogatory way, then the responsibility for any offense falls on you. When others use words in a derogatory context, then the responsibility falls on them, again because the intention is to hurt. So it's not the words, it's the intention and the reaction. That's the thing to take into consideration. But here's the catch. When people specifically use a word in a derogatory manner, they do so to tear the other person down. When you bristle to their use of the word, you're doing exactly what they want you to do, react. In the instant that you react in the manner in which they desired, they control your emotions. Every day we are propagandized by media. You have the news channels, TV programs, movies, or just other people on social network sites that specifically use words in a manner that is designed to inflame the emotions of other people. They love to keep people divided, and they love to confuse people by telling outright lies or half-truths. The reason they get away with it is because people are either too lazy or too indoctrinated to do their own research, and they believe what they are being told or sold instead of doing their own homework. What people fail to realize is this toxic media content, regardless of whether you believe it or recognize it for what it is, it seeps into our cellular memory in the form of embedded programs. So even if you do not have a psychological connection to the information or the subterfuge, your cell system still takes it in and your physical body still reacts to it. Part of the spiritual awakening process is going within to learn not just about your spirit consciousness, but also about how things affect your psyche and your physical form. Most people on this planet believe that their body is them, but in reality, second cognition reality, they are two different entities in a symbiotic relationship. One is not both, and both are not one. Because the workings of the first cognition reality is the way that it is, you must deconstruct all of you, mind, body, and spirit, from an intuitive point of view in order to see how both your body and your spirit have been indoctrinated into the first cognition. You have to go through and analyze everything you know and everything you think you know with a fine-toothed comb and under a microscope. This is where you will see how words and intent have also imprisoned you in the first cognition perception of reality. There are many phrases that we are bombarded with throughout our lifetime that they have worked themselves into our psyche as accepted fact. It doesn't matter which language, it seems to be prevalent in all cultures. You can do your own research in regard to this, but here are two examples. He who is silent is said to consent, and silence speaks volumes. He who is silent is said to consent is an idiom that has no true value as a phrase but creates much power in the paradigm of thought. There are times when lies are spoken that are so asinine they do not warrant a response, yet to the liar they will boast that your silence is proof of their claim. In legal matters, one must respond to an argument regardless of whether the argument is truthful or not, or your silence, as deemed by the court, will confirm the invalid argument by allowing it to pass without challenge. Even though the idiom itself has no value as truth or fact, the mental impressions, the thoughts that it is truth, is what gets programmed into the psyche and even the cellular memory. Silence speaks volumes is another idiom involving silence, but this idiom is contradictory to the first idiom mentioned. So, which idiom, if either, is true? I would say neither. Both are subjective based on observations, and the truth of the idiom is in the perceptions of the individual person. My point here is conflicting words, even in the form of an idiom, have a certain power over the psyches and thought processes, mostly on a subliminal level. In my younger years, I heard the first idiom, he who is silent is said to consent, often, and although I did not embrace it as a truth on a subconscious level, once I began delving into myself from a spiritual standpoint, I found, or even though I didn't embrace this as fact, I found myself in situations where someone would say something to another person. Most of the times, it was something nasty or negative, and the person wouldn't respond. In my unconscious thoughts, I would make the assumption that the person that spoke was telling the truth, and the silence of the other person remained silent because it was truth, and they didn't know how to respond to it. As I grew my own awareness, I found more value in the idiom, silence speaks volumes, in that there are times when something is said, especially a lie by another party that knows they're lying, that the lie, because it is a lie, doesn't warrant a response, because to give the lie acknowledgement in the form of a response would somehow validate the speaking party in some form or another. These were my thoughts. As I have come into greater awareness, I see that both these idioms are the product of subjective thoughts and perceptions that only hold any meaning or value in the mind of the thinker. I also see that these idioms are a prime example about how subconscious programming is so subtle that even when you are aware, you are not aware of the embedded programs that can alter thought processes from such words or idioms in this case. You can have debates about the truthfulness of any idiom, but subjective debates will never warrant anything more than mental masturbation. Unfortunately, sometimes that mental masturbation ejaculates thoughts that can create, even if it doesn't create something positive or something of value. When it comes to your own cognitive awareness, you must question everything you are, including your own thoughts, the words that you use, and how your thoughts align with those words. But this type of internal questioning is no small task. Questioning how you think and how you came to think the way that you do must be done on a conscious level in order for you to see the importance of changing how you think affects the thoughts you have that create. Many people have a bad habit of blurting out the first thing on their mind and give no hesitation or consideration to the words that come out of their mouth. I myself in my younger days was this way, and it is an ego-ingrained habit that I must battle within myself from time to time. As I grew older and wiser, I learned the hard way that it is best to think before you speak, not just in order to control what flies out of your mouth, but to give a moment for your thoughts and your words to be in alignment with one another. People are sensitive to energy, even if they are not aware that they are, and because of that sensitivity, when your words and your thoughts are not harmonized, it gives a greater chance of people misunderstanding and or misinterpreting what you're saying. This will not hold true for every situation because some people are just clueless and self-centered, but for the most part, harmonization between the words and thoughts can prevent a lot of misunderstandings and ego-inflated hurt feelings. People, especially in the field of psychology, put a lot of emphasis on body language and how the body will tell the truth when the person speaking is not. I can say that I think that much of the research that's been done into the concept of body language is spot on, but being that we are all individuals, the common markers in body language are not going to translate to every person in every situation, and oftentimes will lead the observer of body language to the wrong conclusion. Any person that is conniving can learn all about body language and know how to work their body to the verbal cues, and that is something I'm not sure that these people doing the psychological research take into consideration. I also think that there are other factors that they do not take into consideration in the form of cellular programs and or physical traumas. As an example, according to the observances of body language, someone that crosses their arms across their chest when talking to another person it is a sign of, being closed off, right, or defensive. I personally suffer from injuries obtained in a car wreck that affects both my arms. When my injuries flare up, as they do with any physical injury, they hurt, and crossing my arms across my chest is the only thing that quells the pain. So if I'm talking to someone and I'm hurting, I'm not crossing my arms because I'm defensive, right? I'm crossing my arms to lessen my pain level. And there's a difference. I've spoken about the difference between the physical form and the spirit and how cellular programming affects the physical form. This can also cause conflicts in body language that I don't believe psychologists have raised as an issue in their studies. Since psychology does not yet acknowledge cellular memory or programming, they are not remotely prepared to interpret anything based on cellular memory. People experience things differently, and their perceptions, good, bad, or indifferent, can and do affect the cellular programming both psychologically and also physiologically. As an example, when I was little, I had an older brother that loved getting me in trouble. He would do mischievous things and con me to go along with him. When we would get caught, he would blame it on me and I would get in trouble. Even though I would tell my parents that I didn't do it, but that he did, my parents would believe him over me. This also happened with other adults, so I was always getting in trouble for things I didn't do, and even though I was telling the truth, I would not only get into trouble for doing whatever was done, I would also get into trouble for lying about it. This created both a psychological and physiological anxiety for me. Whenever I would be in a situation where someone would ask me to tell them the truth, my physical body would show classical signs of lying, even though I was telling the truth. It took a long time to lose that psychological anxiety from being in those situations, but it took even longer to stop the physiological anxiety from manifesting symptoms classic to body language concepts about what happens when people lie. This is but one example of how our cell system and cellular memory are subconsciously programmed due to negative experiences. To this day, I still do not like confrontations, and even though I have altered my psychological anxiety over confrontations, I still encounter physiological markers of anxiety if I'm in a situation that even looks like it could end up in a confrontation. The point I'm making with this story about body language is that when thoughts and ideas, however right or wrong they may be, get put in public peer review, even if it doesn't necessarily embrace it as a belief or a valid idea, the information is stored in your psyche and your cellular memory, and it can and does have an effect on your thinking processes and body language, regardless if you are aware of it or not. This is how the media works. This is how politicians work. This is how memes work. It is all a form of psychological programming that we are surrounded by every day that most people are not aware of. As you are on your journey of self-discovery, analyze your own psyche and physiology where words are concerned. Analyze how you know what you know, how you think what you think, how you come to your perspectives, and how those perspectives govern your psyche and your body. A few years back, Endall wrote a post about dialectics that I feel is appropriate to include in this segment on words. It goes in a different direction with what I was speaking about in this segment, but it is something to think about in how you see others and how others use words as weapons. You can look up the meaning of dialectics and see how this art is used every day by others, including politicians and other people, in order to control and confuse others. Dialectics. The art of being right. Most people are unaware of the art of dialectics. What once was a valid form of logical argument has been turned into the art of winning an argument for many people. The practitioner of dialectics, in the art of being right, has nothing he chooses to do other than try and prove another wrong. This form of dialectic arguing does not spring from a fair point-counterpoint exchange of logical ideas in order to come to any sort of resolution. The art of winning can be counted simply as destroying your opponent, even if that means not supplying any of the challenger's facts to the contrary. The expert at adversarial dialectics rarely offers anything in the alternative when challenged for facts, but instead picks words and phrases from what his adversary says and tries to turn it around on them, making the challenger seem to be a winner in any argument. This type of argumentative adversary generally has no valid point to prove, but is instead arguing from the standpoint of destroying what his opponent says and nothing more. The manner in which the practitioner of winning to be right rarely has anything valid to contribute to any debate shows that they are merely arguing in order to shout down an opposing opinion. They rarely, if ever, offer any of their own supposed wealth of knowledge when challenged, but instead skirt the issue and continue to attack their target. They continually counter questions with questions, and they are experts at diverting away from the primary point of any disagreement. To those who encounter any of these dialectic practitioners, I would suggest that you be aware that they are trying to veer you away from what you say and get you to start dancing in their daisy field. Once you fall prey to arguing against them on their turf and lose sight of your original statements, then they have won, because you are no longer fighting your fight, you are fighting in defense in an argument they now control. When challenged to offer his own arguments to the contrary of your statements, the expert in dialectics continues to challenge his opponent without offering any substantiating proof of what he claims to know. It is arguing for the sake of arguing and for the sake of feeling that they won. It constitutes artfully avoiding any challenges posed by their adversary, and they will not stop at twisting the meaning of words by simply lifting small portions out of context to purportedly prove their argumentative point. Yet in the final tally, the dialectic practitioner has no argument or any source of information to adequately counter his opponent's assertions. His only desire is to facially win the argument, not to prove a point or offer any alternative valid information to counter his opponent's claims. The practice of dialectics of this kind has been perfected and used by rabbis, Jesuits, lawyers, and politicians for centuries. It constitutes throwing out a red herring, which is also a tactic used in debates. The use of dialectic argument just to win an argument is very prevalent in religion and by all sorts of gurus who will dance you around the garden and return your questions with questions. They never have anything substantive to offer to an argument. They are only arguing to be right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for spending your time again with me and listening to Attaining the Second Cognition. I appreciate it, and I extend my deepest gratitude, my heartfelt thanks to any and to all who take the time to open their mind and search for the truth and to push forward in their own cognitive advancement. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you. A special thanks and shout out to all my new subscribers. I hope you're getting something positive out of these messages. Once again, thank you. This is Doug Michael. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, walk in peace.